Hey there, welcome to ShareTreck. This is Raj here, friends. This is a weekend report. I'm trying to do something different. We have to keep the content fresh, and I'm the only creator out here. So first of all, I would like to request our viewers, if any of you want to contribute, please reach out to me at raj@sharetrek.com or even in the comment section of any of our videos, and I'll get back to you and see how you can become a contributor on the channel. More variety is always good. We are, after all, a retail investor community. That said, today I want to break down one of the biggest legal and economic stories of the year so far. That is the Supreme Court's ruling against Trump's tariff authority. And I want to be clear up front, while this sounds like great news on the surface, I think the full picture is a lot more complicated. So let's dig into it. What happened on February 20th, 2026? Well, the Supreme Court handed down a landmark 6-3 decision, striking down the legal foundation of Trump's tariff agenda. The case centered on something called IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. This is the law Trump used to justify his sweeping tariffs, including what his team called the Liberation Day reciprocal tariffs that hit goods from countries around the world. The court's majority, led by Chief Justice Roberts, said that IEEPA simply does not give the president the power to impose tariffs. The law talks about the president's ability to regulate importation, but the court said that language cannot be stretched to mean the power to tax American consumers through tariffs, especially since the word tariff doesn't appear in the law even a single time. Now, here's the political twist that has Washington buzzing. Two of Trump's own Supreme Court nominees, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, sided with the liberals in the majority. Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh dissented. And to give you a sense of the scale of what was just struck down, these tariffs represented the largest U.S. tax increase as a percentage of GDP in more than 30 years. We are talking about an average tax increase of $1,000 per household at the very least, rising to $1,300 in 2026. That's a massive number. Now, we shouldn't exhale as yet. The story is not yet over. Now, here is where it gets really interesting, and honestly, where the story gets a little frustrating, depending on your perspective. And I have a rant about that in a separate video, which is coming shortly. Within hours of the ruling, the Trump administration made clear they are not done. They have a plan B. Actually, they have a plan B, C, and D. The first tool they are reaching for is called Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. This act allows the president to impose a temporary tariff surcharge of up to 15% if the country is running large balance of payment deficits. Trump immediately announced a 10% global tariff under this authority, but this is a big but. Section 122 has never been used before, and it comes with a hard time limit. Those tariffs can stay in place only for 150 days. After that, Congress has to approve an extension or else the tariffs die. So we are looking at a deadline of roughly mid-August 2026 before this authority runs out. And getting Congress to extend it, especially heading into the midterm season, is far from guaranteed. The second tool is Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This lets the president impose tariffs when imports are deemed a threat to national security. Trump used this during his first term for steel and aluminum tariffs. Well, the problem here is that Section 232 investigations take up to 270 days to complete. It is a slow process, and the legal justification has to be specific to national security. You can't just apply it across the board to bacon, dairy products, cars, and everything, and to every country in general. So it's a bit limited. The third tool is Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, which targets unfair trade practices by specific countries. Again, procedurally heavy and limited in scope. There is also a fourth, lesser-known option called Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930, which could theoretically allow tariffs of up to 50% on countries deemed to be discriminating against American commerce. That one is likely to face enormous legal pushback as well. Treasury Secretary Bessent went in front of cameras and said, 2026 tariff revenue will be virtually unchanged.
And I would note that I did not change a single word in my speech post the ruling. President Trump will always put our national security and Americans first. And as I have said before, the president has multiple tools in his toolbox. Let's be clear about what today's ruling was and what it wasn't. Despite the misplaced gloating from Democrats, ill-informed media outlets, and the very people who gutted our industrial base, the court did not rule against President Trump's tariffs. 6 justices simply ruled that IEEPA authorities cannot be used to raise even $1 of revenue. This administration will invoke alternative legal authorities to replace the IEEPA tariffs. We will be leveraging Section 232 and Section 301 tariff authorities that have been validated through thousands of legal challenges. Treasury's estimates show that the use of Section 122 authority, combined with potentially enhanced Section 232 and Section 301 tariffs, will result in virtually unchanged tariff revenue in 2026.
He's projecting confidence, but the reality is that none of these replacement tools have the speed, the flexibility, or the sweeping scope that IEEPA did. And the reason why this is harder than it looks, simply put, is that IEEPA was a nuclear option. It was fast, it was broad, it covered everything and everyone simultaneously. The tools they are pivoting to now are more like surgical instruments. Each one requires a specific legal justification, a specific process, a specific target, something that this administration is too lazy to do or not inclined to do. Section 232 needs a national security finding. Section 301 needs documented evidence of unfair trade practices. You can't simply use these laws to slap a blanket 50% tariff on every country at once. The universal sweeping nature of IEEPA tariff regime cannot be replaced this easily. At least not cleanly and not without a fresh round of court battles. And that is the part that matters most for all of us watching this. Even Justice Kavanaugh, who dissented and sided with Trump, acknowledged in his dissent that the alternative statutes come with, quote, a few additional procedural steps that IEEPA as an emergency statute does not require. Even Trump's ally on the bench is acknowledging these replacements are more cumbersome. The $160 billion refund problem is something that Justice Kavanaugh talked about, because this ruling creates a financial reckoning that nobody has fully figured out yet. The IEEPA tariffs collected more than $160 billion from American businesses before this ruling came down. Because those tariffs were just declared illegal, these companies which paid the tariffs are likely entitled to refunds. But the Supreme Court said nothing about how that process should work. The Trump administration has made clear they have no intention of proactively handing back that money. That means importers will have to file legal petitions and go to court to recover what they paid. And here is the part that really stings. The consumers who actually bore the cost of these tariffs through higher prices at the store, they are almost certainly getting nothing back. Here, I want to point a very interesting thing that I came across in the media. It is alleged that Howard Lutnick's firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, of course, he's not directly involved with it. I believe his sons are running it. The reports say that that company has been selling a product to companies who have been paying tariffs. And the product was to buy back the tariffs that the refund that they're entitled to in case the Supreme Court rules against the tariff. For example, if a company paid maybe $100,000 in tariffs, Lutnick's company would probably buy it back for a heavy discount. And as far as the company paying the tariff is concerned, the uncertainty of the refund is gone. They get upfront cash. It may not be 100%, but it is at least 10 or 20% of what they paid, and that is definitely in their hand. With uncertainty about Supreme Court ruling against the tariffs, that product probably got sold. So now Howard Lutnick's company is sitting on a gold mine. So if litigation comes, it will be interesting to see if that company is going to do any litigation to claim all those refunds, because they stand to make a huge gain. They have paid out the money and bought those tariffs at a discount. They don't make a profit until they get the tariffs back from the government. So watch that space and we'll see what happens out there. Now, what does this mean for your portfolio and the stock market? Let's talk about what this means for investors, because the market reaction tells an interesting story. On the day of the ruling, stocks moved higher. The S&P 500 was up about 0.7%. The Nasdaq gained 0.9%. The Dow added roughly 230 points. A solid day. But honestly, given the magnitude of what the court just did, a lot of analysts expected a bigger pop. The cleanest winners were companies with heavy import exposure. Analysts at Jefferies specifically called out Nike, Yeti, and Shark Ninja as major beneficiaries. Consumer-facing retail names like Wayfair, Arhaus, and Williams-Sonoma also rallied. The logic is straightforward. If you are a business that imports a lot of goods, lower tariffs mean lower cost, which means better margins. But here is a cautionary note for every retail investor. Oxford Economics put it well when they warned that any near-term boost from lower tariffs is likely to be partly offset by a prolonged period of uncertainty, and that uncertainty is real because the administration is actively working to rebuild its tariff regime through other channels. What we could be looking at is a new pattern in the markets: rally when the court strikes down tariffs, sell off when the administration finds new ways to reimpose them. That cycle has played out before during this trade saga, and there is every reason to think it will play out again as the Section 122, 232, and 301 tariffs get challenged in court. One strategist put it this way: this ruling could be the catalyst that breaks the stock market out of the narrow trading range it has been stuck in so far in 2026. Maybe. But until we know whether the replacement tariff architecture actually holds up legally, uncertainty is going to remain a headwind for anyone trying to value stocks with confidence. Now, also keep in mind the characteristics of this administration. When you look at what happened in other court cases where the Department of Justice had claimed and declared certain things to the court, which later on turned out to be untrue, and other cases where litigations were launched despite the fact that there was no underlying cases. Basically, what I'm saying is this particular administration is more likely to shoot first and talk later when it comes to making executive decisions and executive orders. Therefore, there is no guarantee that all of these sections will be used and they will actually have to be challenged in the court. And we'll have to go through a 6 to 8 month procedure of going from the lower courts all the way up to the Supreme Court and then get a verdict. And even after that, a refund is unlikely. Now, among all of these things, what is happening is basically that the retail investor is going to face a lot of volatility, and the average consumer, who is more likely to lose their jobs and is facing a lot of inflation, is going to get more and more disenchanted. Now, let's look at the big picture, good news and the bad news. So let me wrap this up with the honest assessment. The good news is that this is genuinely important constitutional ruling. The Supreme Court has reasserted that the power to tax, which is what tariffs are, belongs to Congress, not the president acting alone under emergency powers. That's a meaningful guardrail, and in the short term, removing these tariffs eliminates what the economists estimated as a 0.3% drag on the long-run US GDP growth. I would also like to point out that at this point of time, most of the US voters are looking at the fact that Mike Johnson has abdicated the responsibility as head of the Congress, and he has allowed Trump to take over these kind of responsibilities and authorities, which was originally belonging to the Congress. The earlier posture was that Congress is not objecting, so Trump could continue to do what he's doing, and maybe Congress have to come together and pass a resolution asking Trump to revise the executive order or nullifying the executive order on the tariffs. But now, with the Supreme Court decision, what we have here is that under any of the other sections, if Trump was to go in and put the tariffs on, he's likely to do that on Section 122, I believe, which has got a 170-day limit, after which Trump will have to go to the Congress to ask for an extension, or else those tariffs will die out and he can't do immediately another 170 days. But he may try to do that. So we are in a situation where it's a no-win situation. There is going to be Hunger Games, and there's going to be WWE type of things going on. More volatility in store. Expert traders are likely to make a lot of money in this volatility, but retail investors like us with limited information, delayed information, and limited purchasing capacity, limited capacity to buy insurance, we are going to be suffering quite a bit. Now let's go to the bad news. There is more bad news. The trade war is not over and not even close. The administration has a contingency plan ready before the ink on this ruling was dry. The replacement tariffs may end up nearly as high, nearly as broad, and nearly as damaging as the ones just struck down, just with more paperwork and more court battles along the way. A recent poll by Council of Foreign Relations and Morning Consult found that a plurality of Americans believe the president should not be able to impose tariffs without congressional approval. And that is the fact, that is the law of the land. And yet, here we are watching the administration pivot to new executive authorities to keep the tariff regime alive. For businesses, for trading partners, and for investors, the message is the same. This ruling changed the legal landscape. It did not end the trade war. The turbulence is not over. It has simply moved to a new runway. Well, friends, this is the breakdown that I had for you with regard to tariffs. If you found this useful, please share it with your friends, get new viewers for our channel. If you are not yet subscribed, just check and see have you subscribed. If not, please subscribe. And also leave a comment below. Your likes and comments help with the YouTube algorithms. Do you know that we also have a free Substack? Link to the Substack is in the description. There is a detailed article in the Substack on the same issue. Every pre-market commentary and every long-form video has an equivalent Substack article with more information in it. And I want to know, do you think this administration's pivot will hold up in court, or are we headed for round 2 at the Supreme Court? Please put that in the comment section. I'll catch up with you in the next video. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.